Welcome back to Chapters Unfolded. You know we love diving deep into books that'll help you level up your life, and this is episode 15 of our deep dive into Atomic Habits. Remember that book that's all about how small changes can lead to huge transformations?
That's the one. And today we're tackling a chapter that really flips the script on how we think about forming good habits and breaking those bad ones.
Ooh, okay, so I'm already intrigued. We've talked about making good habits easy and fun, but this chapter is about making bad habits difficult, like almost impossible.
Exactly. Might sound a little counterintuitive, but think about it. How often do we try to resist temptation just using willpower?
Oh, all the time.
Yeah,
But let's be real, willpower kind of runs out eventually, doesn't
it
it?
totally does. It's a limited resource. And that's where this whole idea of making things difficult comes in. We're basically admitting that we're human, we have weaknesses, and we can set up our surroundings to make those bad habits harder to reach.
I like it. It's like we're outsmarting our future selves before they can even mess up.
You got it. James Clear calls these little tricks commitment devices.
Commitment devices. Okay, tell me more. What does that even mean?
Well, it's any decision you make now to control your actions later, like a pre-commitment.
Hmm.
A great example Clear uses is the story of Victor Hugo. You know, the author of Les Miserables.
Oh yeah, Les Mis. I know that one. But wait, what does Victor Hugo have to do with commitment devices?
Okay, so picture this. You're a famous author with a huge deadline looming, but you also happen to be a master procrastinator.
Okay, I think I can relate to that. Deadlines and we have a complicated relationship.
Well, that was Victor Hugo back in 1830. He was struggling to finish The Hunchback of Notre Dame, kept putting off his writing. So you know what he did?
What did he do?
He had his assistant lock away all his clothes except for one big shawl.
He locked up his clothes. That's a bit extreme, isn't it? Why would he do that?
Because if he didn't have any decent clothes to wear, he couldn't leave the house. It was a drastic move for sure, but it was brilliant. No more going out, no more socializing, just writing.
Wow, talk about commitment. It's like he built a wall between himself and procrastination. But it worked right. He finished the book.
He did, and he actually turned in the manuscript 2 weeks early.
Okay, so maybe we don't have to lock up our entire wardrobes. But I'm starting to see how powerful this idea can be.
Right. And the best part is commitment devices don't have to be so dramatic. Think about everyday stuff. Like if you're trying to cut back on chips, what do you do?
Well, I try to avoid buying the giant bags.
Exactly. You buy single serving snacks instead. You're literally making it harder to overeat by making it physically harder to access a huge amount of chips.
Oh, yeah. Or, like, if you have a gambling problem, you could ask to be banned from online poker sites.
Yeah, it's a perfect example. Or even just handing your credit card to a friend before you go out so you don't overspend.
Right. It's like you're literally taking away your ability to buy things on impulse.
You're setting up those boundaries in advance.
So commitment devices, they're all about making those bad habits harder to do. But what about making the good habits easier?
Well, that's where automating those good habits comes in. Remember, we talked about willpower being limited.
Yeah.
Well, with automation, you're basically outsourcing those good decisions to a system or technology so you don't even have to use willpower.
That sounds amazing. But how does that actually work?
One classic example Clear uses is the invention of the cash register. Before cash registers were a thing, employee theft was a huge problem. It was just so easy for employees to take money without anyone knowing.
Yeah, I can see how that would be tempting, especially back then, before all the technology we have now. So how did the cash register change things?
Well, the cash register made it almost impossible to steal because suddenly every transaction was being recorded. It basically automated honesty.
Wow.
It wasn't that employees suddenly became more ethical, it was that the environment changed and made honesty the default behavior.
That's so interesting. Makes you realize how much our environment affects what we do, even if we don't realize it. But we don't need to invent a cash register to automate good habits in our own lives. Yeah.
No, not at all. There are tons of ways to do it. Think about setting up automatic savings deposits. You're automating your financial discipline.
Or using those website blockers to get out of the social media black hole. You're automating your focus.
Exactly. Or even meal prep services, or ordering your groceries online so you always have healthy staples on hand. You're automating healthy eating. It's all about making those good choices the easy, mindless option.
It's like putting your good habits on autopilot. But isn't there a downside to all this automation? Like, doesn't it sometimes work against us? Like those one more episode buttons on streaming services that just suck you in and you end up binge watching everything.
You're right. Automation can be a double-edged sword. It can make life easier and help build those good habits, but it can also make those bad habits stronger. We have to be careful how we use it because all those autoplay features, those endless social media feeds, They're designed to keep us hooked.
So how do we protect ourselves from that?
Yeah.
Do we have to just ditch all technology?
Yeah. No, you don't have to go full Luddite. It's about being intentional. Like you can use technology to automate those good habits, like scheduling workout reminders or setting time limits on certain apps. You can even automate those things you do less often, but are important, like rebalancing your investment portfolio or booking your yearly checkups.
It's like having a personal assistant reminding you to do all the right things, even when you don't feel like it. But what about those habits that are trickier to automate, like procrastination or snacking? Those seem harder to fix with just technology.
You're right, those are tough ones. For those really ingrained habits, you might need some more creative solutions. Clear actually shares a pretty extreme example in the book. He was having trouble with his own social media habit. So he had his assistant change all his passwords every Monday and only give them back to him on Friday.
Wow, that's some serious commitment. But I get it. Sometimes you got to go to extremes to break those addictive patterns. It's like he built a digital detox right into his week.
It just shows that even small, seemingly insignificant changes can have a big impact on our behavior. Sometimes we just got to think outside the box and find what works for us, even if it's a little unconventional.
So we've talked about making those bad habits harder and those good habits easier. Are there any other strategies we can use to make those positive changes stick? Like what about those one-time actions that can set us up for success down the line?
You're bringing up another great point. Clear talks about the power of those one-time actions. Things like buying a really good mattress to help you sleep better, or setting up automatic bill pay so you never have to deal with late fees again.
Yeah, it's like you're investing in your future self by making those smart choices up front. It's not just about willpower in the moment. It's about building systems to support your goals.
Exactly. It's about realizing that our environment shapes our behavior. But we can actually shape our environment too. Clear actually has a whole list of these one-time actions in the book. They cover everything from food and exercise to productivity and finances.
Oh, wow. So it's like a cheat sheet for good habits.
Pretty much, you're kind of hacking the system of your own life.
I love that.
And remember, even though we're focusing on making things difficult, the end goal is to make those good changes feel easy and automatic. You want to get to a point where those habits are so ingrained they're not a struggle anymore.
It's like rewiring your brain to work better without even thinking about it.
Yeah.
That's what Atomic Habits is all about, right?
Exactly. Small, consistent changes that add up over time and lead to awesome results. And it's a journey, not a destination. There will be bumps along the way for sure. But the important thing is to keep trying new things, keep learning, and keep adjusting until you find what works for you.
It's that growth mindset. You don't see slip-ups as failures. You see them as chances to learn and get back on track.
Exactly. And that's why this deep dive into Atomic Habits is so valuable. It's not just a one-time listen. It's something you can come back to again and again as you figure out your own habits.
It's like a toolbox full of strategies to build a better, more fulfilling life, one tiny habit at a time. So as we wrap up this episode of Chapters Unfolded, let's think about our listeners.
We've talked about making bad habits difficult and good habits easier. But the real challenge, the fun part, is figuring out what works for you. What's one thing you can change in your environment right now to get closer to your goals?
Could you rearrange your desk to get rid of distractions? Pack your gym bag the night before. Set a daily reminder to be grateful.
Remember, even the smallest change can have a ripple effect. It can set off a chain reaction of positive changes. So don't underestimate those little adjustments.
That's it for this deep dive into Atomic Habits. We'll be back soon with another episode of Chapters Unfolded, exploring more life-changing books and giving you actionable strategies for personal growth.
If you like this episode, hit that subscribe button and leave a comment telling us what you learned. And don't forget to share this with a friend who might need a little nudge to unlock their potential. Until next time, keep reading and keep those positive changes coming.